Wow, hello. Goodness, there's a lot of you here today. Wonderful to see so many of you. Thank you for coming along on a snowy Saturday to spend some time with us here in this lovely venue. My name is Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. Not my first trip to Warsaw. You may have seen me do a session before, I'm not sure. If not, I suppose I should introduce myself, shouldn't I? So that you don't think I've just been dragged in off the streets to do this. I've been in English language teaching for 14 years it is now, suddenly a long time. And during that time I've done all sorts of things, from teaching the very littlest ones right up to teaching the much bigger ones. I've done various management jobs as an academic manager and a director of studies, some examining. Lots of teacher training as a CELTA trainer and also for Pearson, and as an author for Pearson as well. It's been a very busy 14 years, but luckily there has been time for my hobbies and my interests, which I suppose may be similar to yours. I don't know, we'll see. Cooking. You look skeptical, madam. Cooking's a chore, isn't it? You know, on a cloudy Sunday afternoon when there's nothing else to do. I love Asian food, so I like to experiment and cook spicy Asian food. And now, of course, in Poland you can get all sorts of wonderful ingredients from every corner of the world. So cooking is one of my hobbies. Another one is reading. I'm an avid reader, as I'm sure many of you are. I always have my nose in a book, which is great in this job because, as you can imagine, I do a lot of traveling, so there's plenty of time for reading for me. What else? Music is another of my big interests. I'm a big music fan and occasional DJ. Ooh. Oh. Okay, I will come clean, I'll be honest with you. Twice in my life I've DJ'd in a nightclub. Never in my life have I DJ'd on the radio, and 99% of the time it's just me on my own in my bedroom. Much to the annoyance of the neighbours. So music is another one. This is my favourite time of year, because this is also the time of year that my biggest passion is possible. Snowboarding. Love to snowboard. Unfortunately, well, as you can tell, I'm busy at the moment, so I'm hoping to have a break and go snowboarding in March. So personally, I'm hoping for a long, cold winter. Are you with me? Okay, I never get a good response to that particular question. What else? Oh, just one more thing to tell you about, in fact, another interest or hobby of mine. But rather than explain, I'll show you a picture. In fact, I'll show you part of a picture. You can't see the top half of this picture. Well, let me show you. Can you guess what it is that's making me grin like an idiot? It's connected to one of my interests. What is it that you can't see at the top of the photo, do you think? Some kind of animal on my head is a very good guess. Well done. Have you been looking at my Facebook page? Yes, I'm not a bird spotter, but I am an animal lover. Anything to do with animals and plants, nature, is my cup of tea. I think I've seen every program that David Attenborough has ever made. If you ask me, I think he should be the next king of England. That's in my humble opinion. Okay, that's probably enough about me. What about the session today? It has a strange and long name. It's called Learner-Centered Teaching, yes, but what about my teaching style? And as we explore the answer to that question, I want to look at several things. The first of them being sensory channels. Their importance in the classroom, both to our students, so sensory channels and learning, but also to us as teachers. How do our different sensory preferences affect the way we teach? I'm also very interested as a materials writer in the way that course books cater to different sensory channels in the classroom. So we'll have a look at that a little bit later too. And then in the next part of the session, I'm going to invite you to relax and lie down on the psychologist's couch. because we're going to do a short psychological test together, and I hope to determine your thinking style, which may tell us something about your teaching style. Throughout the presentation, and also particularly towards the second half, lots of ideas to help us deal with what I call the non-consumable challenge. As you well know, our students are no longer able to write or draw in their textbooks. So what can we do about that to meet that new challenge? So that's for the next 45 minutes or so, I think. To help us along the way, we'll be looking at ideas and activities taken from the three books that you heard about during the introduction. They are Today, Discover English, and Look. And I hope to tell you a little bit more about why there are three rather than just one. And that is connected to teaching styles, amongst other things. So let's get going. As you can imagine, in my job, I talk to loads of teachers during coffee breaks, after the sessions, and that, plus my own experience as a teacher, has made me realize that we do far more than one job, don't we? Being a teacher, in fact, is 100 professions rolled into one. Well, for example, we are our own IT support sometimes, aren't we? We have to be. If something goes wrong with your computer, your interactive whiteboard, your CD player before the lesson, well, if you don't fix it, probably no one else will. Right, so we have to be our own IT support. And occasionally, perhaps, counsellors as well for our troubled students. Don't worry, it's just a boy. Although I kind of hope that upper primary students are not having relationship problems just yet. Fingers crossed. I don't want to do all the talking today. I'm going to hand over to you in just a moment to carry on this conversation, which means, of course, that you need someone to talk to. So what I'm going to ask you to do is have a look at the people you're sitting near to and next to. Take a good look at them. Do they look friendly? Friendly here at the front? Have another look. Yep, definitely friendly. Very good. Okay. Friendly at the back? Good. If you are sitting next to someone unfriendly, come down to the front. We're all friendly here. Good. Do you know the name of the person you're sitting next to? If not, please find out now. Give them a smile and introduce yourself. Hello, people on this side. Good, 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 good. As you know, in England, we're very keen on manners and politeness, so that's that part out of the way. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do with your friendly partner, please, is to continue this conversation. What else do we do as teachers? Sometimes we're our own IT support. We may occasionally be counsellors for our students. Apart from teaching, what are our other roles? 30 seconds with your friendly partner, please. Hello, people over here. Okay, thank you. Well, fantastic. Thank you for a very enthusiastic response. It looks good for the rest of the session. Warms my heart. Wonderful. I asked a group of teachers the same question just the other day, and one lady put her hand up and said, "I am the gardener." I said, "What, the gardener?" And she said, "Yes, the school is full of plants on the windowsills. If I don't water them, nobody else will." Gardener. I wonder if any of the following came up during your conversations, because, well, sometimes we are police officers. when necessary. Mountains of paperwork, of course. Teachers are administrators supreme. And volunteering everything else that happens outside the classroom, sports day, school, play, charity event, whatever it is, we get involved in all sorts of things, don't we? And that's not all. Fashion consultant? Possibly, now and again. And certainly entertainers, particularly for the visual learners in our group. If you ask me, that's one of the best parts of the job, I think. I remember when I was a young, fresh-faced teacher getting some very good advice, and I never forgot this piece of advice, and that was, never ask your students to do anything that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself, which I think is very good advice. If you want them to, for example, mime an animal, you have to be willing to mime an animal yourself, don't you? If you want them to play a funny role in a role play, you have to be willing to play a funny role in a role play. So I think that was excellent advice. And yes, of course, finally, when the stars are high in the sky, we might actually have a chance to think about what we're going to teach tomorrow. So the role of a teacher is varied and many. And whilst we do all of this, of course, balancing all these roles, we do have to make sure that we don't do this to our students. Because we have to keep them engaged along the way, don't we? As we fulfill what is our primary role, to lead them through the maze of language learning. And I think that job gets much easier if we have an awareness of their sensory preferences, the sensory channels that are at work in the classroom. And this is one of the things that I want to talk about during the session today. I imagine you know what I'm talking about when I say sensory preferences or sensory channels. The three most common ones, this will not be new to you, are represented by the eye, the what channel? The visual channel. Represented by the ear, of course, it's the auditory channel. And hands represent, kinesthetic, the kinesthetic channel. So visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Now, statistically speaking, 65% of you here in the room today are visual learners. Did you know that? It's kind of a global statistic, 65% of you, which means, well, visual learners enjoy new language being presented to them through texts, and they enjoy producing written work particularly. They also enjoy the use of pictures and film in the classroom. Auditory learners, of course, like language to be presented to them through listening texts, and are very keen participants in discussions, group discussions, pair discussions. Interestingly, auditory learners make more use of repetition in their autonomous learning than any other sensory preference, and they like the use of things like mnemonics, which is not easy to say. Do you know what a mnemonic is? You may have heard of this before. It's a little trick. It's a little trick to help you remember something that's difficult to remember. For example, the word rhythm in English is one of the very few words in English that has no vowels, none of the main 5 vowels. And it's really difficult to spell, or at least I always used to find it really difficult to spell, until someone showed me the mnemonic for rhythm, which is this. Rhythm helps your 2 hips move. And if you can remember that, then you will never spell the word rhythm wrongly again. If you like that kind of thing, Google spelling mnemonics online and you'll find all sorts of interesting ways to remember difficult spelling. Rhythm helps your 2 hips move. And of course, 2 hips moving would appeal to our third sensory channel, the kinesthetic channel, who enjoy tactile representations of language, total physical response, and those activities that take us forever to prepare, chopped up pieces of paper to be put into different groups. I suppose it's worth mentioning that, of course, we all use all of these sensory channels to varying degrees, depending on what the task that we're coping with is. However, it is thought that in every one of us, one of them is dominant. I wonder if you know which one is dominant in you, because we often apply these labels to learners, but I also think it's useful to think about them in terms of ourselves as teachers. So let's conduct a little experiment. I'm going to show you a list of features. Actually, they're features of different types of learner, But what I'd like you to do is apply them to yourself. See if you can spot yourself in the following list. Let's look at an example. For example, the top group are characteristics of visual learners. A neat environment. Think about your desk. Would you describe your desk as a neat environment? Okay, and this is what I'd like you to do, please. Together with your friendly partners from earlier on, just look through the list. Yep, that's me. Nah, never do that. For 30 seconds or so. Can you identify which channel is dominant in you? Off you go, please. Okay. Dziękuję, dziękuję. Fantastic. There are some interesting ones here, aren't there? For example, this one, remembers lyrics. Are you one of those person that hears a song, one of those people that hears a song a couple of times and then can remember the words? Me too. Sometimes too much, right? Sometimes it gets stuck and you can't get rid of a song. What else? This is an interesting one. Can't sit still. Are you one of those people that can't sit still? Are you sitting next to one of those people that can't sit still? Stop it. Right. This is a nice one too. Walk with your hand on the wall. You walk with your hand on the wall? Only on a Saturday night after one too many wines, right? Good. All right, so let's see if you were able to identify your preference. If you think you are more of a visual person, please raise your hand. Or at least 65% of us, so the statistic must be true. If you think you are an auditory person, raise your hand, please. I think I am. A more exclusive group, we are auditory people. And possibly an even more exclusive group, who thinks they're more of a kinesthetic person? Oh, quite a lot of you today. I noticed one of you was doing this, which is very kinesthetic in itself, isn't it? Good. Okay, so we often apply these labels to students, but I do think it's useful and interesting to look at them in terms of ourselves as teachers and how it might affect our teaching style. And that's something that we'll come back to a little bit later in the session, is your teaching style. But for now, as a materials writer, I'm very interested in the way that course books cater to different channels, because the course book's important, isn't it? This one, by the way, is it's the new edition of the book, Recent Changes to the Polish Education System. We will be giving you a free copy to take away with you after the session today. I hope you brought your wheelbarrow. I'm very interested in the way that course books cater to different sensory channels. And any good modern course book is written with this in mind, of course. Take a look at just one lesson and you can see that a wide variety of activities and ideas have been included to appeal to these different channels. Let's look at something from Discover English. No prizes for guessing why I chose this topic. Attenborough, animals. And now this is a vocabulary lesson teaching animal vocabulary, and it starts by asking the students to match pictures and words, which is clearly a visual activity, isn't it? Now, it's a non-consumable course book, which means that our students cannot actually write those words next to the pictures anymore. So they write them in their course book. No, they don't. They write them in their notebook. And of course, they need to either draw a little picture next to it of the animal if there's time, or provide a translation, don't they? A list of English words is not going to help them when they get to test revision. They must have some sort of reference, either a picture or Polish as well. Arguably, all of that, of course, is kinesthetic, tactile representation, the script representation of the language. And when they've finished, look, they listen to check and repeat, clearly an auditory activity. A little bit later in the lesson, to revise, a nice one, work with a friend, mime an animal, and can your friend guess which animal you are, which is clearly a kinesthetic activity. So in just one lesson, just one page of a course book, you can see how much thought has been given to these different sensory channels. Now, if we take a look at the contents page of Discover English as an example, you may notice that there are little asterisks next to each of the, some of the topics. And the asterisk signifies that this particular topic is a part of the nowa podstawa programowa. Tak? Okay. Okay, why is that important? Well, that's important because, of course, in non-consumable course books, another thing we're not allowed to do is show exactly where the test or exam practice exercises are. But all of the books that we'll see today are written to comply with nowa podstawa programowa, which means they also comply, of course, and have everything you need to get ready for the test with the unpronounceable name. Unpronounceable if you are English. I've been working on this. I've been working on this for quite some time now, and as far as I'm aware, it's the sprawdzian shoes toe klasisty. Right? Mm-hmm. Sprawdzian szóstoklasisty. Ah. Thank you. So everything you need to get ready for the test is in the book. It's just that it's not labelled quite as it used to be. I'm sure you won't have any problem finding it, though. Good. Let's take a break for a moment, because I like to include in my sessions some activities for you to use on Monday morning, stuff to take back to school. Here's a quick one that's very good for revising lexical sets. Lexical sets such as animals. And one of the best things about this activity is that it takes about 15 seconds for you to prepare. It looks like this. It's a whiteboard activity. And here's a lexical set. A set of animals. And the first animal is elephant. With the highly intelligent person that you're sitting next to, can you continue and work out what all the animals are, please? Right. Successful? I can see lots of satisfied nodding out there. Very good. So the first one was elephant. The second one was snake. And the very last one? Oh, no, sorry. Close, but Shrek. Good. Now, I'm afraid this activity does not have a very sexy name. It's called a devoweled lexical set. Hey kids, it's time for devoweled lexical set. If you can think of a better name for it, please do come and let me know at the end of the session today. But as I started off by saying, it's good because it takes almost no preparation. So, time for the lesson. How shall I start? Have a look a couple of units back, lexical set, put it on the board without the vowels, and what you get immediately from the students is this. Which is what we want. Right, we want their attention, don't we, at the beginning of the lesson. So some more activities a bit like that later in the session. You'll remember, I hope, that just a couple of minutes ago we looked at how a vocabulary lesson can appeal to a range of different sensory channels. Now, can the same thing be done with a grammar lesson? Yes, it can. For example, the grammar lessons in Look, which some of you may be familiar with, take a graphic approach to grammar, clearly appealing to visual learners. As you can see, with the use of blue and red, it's amazing how many structures can be represented using blue and red here. In this case, of course, the change from a statement to a question. So a very visual approach. A tip for you, if you are using Look, or if you are thinking of using Look, if you can replicate that same visual signal on your whiteboard, you'll need to have 3 pens, of course, in your hand, but I'm sure you'll manage. Then you're strengthening that signal for your students. And as you can see, the graphics hint at movement, don't they? So something kinesthetic in this as well. And I've watched lessons that use Look and seen teachers do something wonderful with this to bring it off the page. And that is to group the students and give out some bits of paper with words on. So a white one, a white one, a white one, a blue one, a red one. And then this group, I mean, you can do it with, everyone has their own papers, or you can get this group to stand at the front of the class and the students shout, no, no, you go left, you go right, and they can make the changes and physically make the grammar, which is a great kinesthetic approach to this. So the answer to the question is yes, grammar lessons too can be designed to appeal to a range of different sensory channels. Good. I talk to a lot of teachers, as I said earlier, and I'm very keen to ask about course books and get as much feedback as possible. And I hear all sorts of things from teachers, some of them very positive. Teachers tell me that the course book's a good start. It's an essential tool, but of course not the only one. It's something very useful. I also hear less positive comments about some books. For example, some teachers find some books difficult to work with or perhaps limiting in some way. There are other things I'd like to do, but they don't really fit with these materials. It's my experience too, and I'm very interested to know why it is that we love some course books and we find others more difficult to work with. And of course there are many answers to that question, but I think one of the answers to that question is whether or not that particular course book fits your particular teaching style. Because I think it's true to say, when it comes to course books, one size definitely does not fit all. We're all looking for something slightly different from our course books. So we've reached that stage of the presentation that I know you've been looking forward to. I'm going to invite you to relax and lie down on the psychologist's couch. Come into the office, please make yourself comfortable. We're going to do a short test to determine your thinking style. Now, please don't worry. There will be no hypnotism involved, and I promise not to probe your deepest, darkest secrets. However, you will need a pen and paper to complete the test. Could you organize that now, please? Wonderful. Okay. Now, actually, your job is very easy. All I need you to do is write down a series of letters. I'm going to ask you some questions, and there will be choices of either answer A or answer B. So that's all you need to do. In fact, you don't even need to write down the question numbers, because like one of those coffee break magazines, at the end we'll add up how many A's, how many B's, and the inner depths of your characters will be revealed with just 6 questions. Are you ready? Here we go, question number 1, and I'll show you a list in just a second. From that list, I'd like you to choose 2 features which best describe your character. They don't have to be both A's or both B's. Choose at leisure and then write down 2 letters. Quite a challenge to sum yourself up in just 2 adjectives, isn't it? Hopefully you've got 2 letters written down there. Let's move on. For the next one, I would like you to please close your eyes. Close your eyes and imagine green. I'll be back in about 20 minutes, okay? No. You can open your eyes again. Now, what did you see when you were imagining green? Did you see the letters of the word or nothing? That's A. Or did you see something green? That's B. Shrek, perhaps. Possibly. Good. Next. When you're reading a book, do you A, hear the words you're reading in your head, or B, see the action a bit like a film in your head? Okay. This is the last question. Oh, no, it's not. Yes. Basically, the question is, do you recognize the photograph? Well, we better make it sound a bit more psychological than that. In your room or on your desk, A, everything is ordered and neat. B, people think there is chaos, but you always know where to find everything. Wonderful. And here comes the last question. This is the last one. When you have to create something, whether it's a sort of birthday card for your niece or nephew, or it's something to use in tomorrow's lesson, do you prefer to use something that's existing, so existing materials, and adapt them, or do you prefer to start from absolutely nothing and make something that is your own creation, so to create from scratch? A or B? End of test. End of test. So now I invite you, please, to count up your A's and count up your B's. How many of each do you have? Okay. Now let's have a look at the results of our highly scientific test. Right. If you got more A's than B's, this suggests that possibly you're an analytical, logical thinker. which in turn suggests that possibly you teach with slightly more emphasis on grammar. Possibly. These are not unmovable labels, and you could be the exception to the rule. Equally, perhaps this does shine some light on your teaching style. If you got more B's than A's, then you're probably an intuitive, spontaneous thinker, which suggests that maybe you teach with slightly more emphasis on communication. Possibly. Now, did anybody get 3 A's and 3 B's? Me too, when I did the test, I have to say. I guess that just means that we are the best of both worlds, right? Wonderful. If anyone got mostly C's, please come back and see me again next week in the psychologist's office. Good. All right. Maybe this shines some light on our teaching styles. If you got more B's than A's, then possibly you teach with more emphasis on communication. Let's have a look at some materials that place a strong emphasis on communication. It is very important to point out at this point that, of course, although there's an emphasis on communication, there's also lots of work on grammar and all other aspects of the language. But when you look at today and you look at just one lesson, you can see the communicative emphasis from the very start. This is a lesson on everyday items, vocabulary, introduced through a dialogue, an authentic sounding dialogue. And the students bring their skills to this dialogue to either listen to it or read it or both, in fact. And as well as the vocabulary, the target vocabulary for the lesson, the dialogue also presents a number of useful phrases. These sort of authentic little snippets of language that help us to sound a little bit more authentic, help our language to be more communicative. Sadly, these are the things that are missing from my Polish, I must admit. I wish I knew more of this kind of everyday language so I could sound more like you. I don't think I'll ever convince anyone that I'm Polish, but I would like to get a bit closer to that one day. Even the practice in today is communicative. Rather than filling a gap or matching a word in a definition, the students have their own little dialogues. What's this? It's da-da-da-da, and so on. So they actually practice the language, get to use it in a communicative way very quickly after it's been presented to them. As you heard during the lead-in, there's a strong strand of film that accompanies today, and one of those strands is to help students with just this kind of language, this communicative language. We'll watch a very short excerpt from one of the films, just so you can get the idea. And a challenge for you as you watch: can you name the city where it is filmed? I'm sure you can. If you're really clever, can you name the place in the city where it is filmed? Here we go.
Excuse me, do you know this area?
Yes, we do.
Great. Where's the National Gallery?
Sorry, I don't know. Mum, where's the National Gallery?
It's on Trafalgar Square.
So there's video to help the students with the communicative strand of the book, and of course the teacher's book gives you all sorts of tips on how to integrate that into your lesson. There's also a video to help with grammar, presented by this interesting chap, Lenny. 1,000 points for anyone who can tell me what kind of animal Lenny is. Someone said it, I heard it. Lemur. He's a ring-tailed lemur commonly found in Madagascar. Amazing what you learn if you watch too much Attenborough. Lenny is one of those characters that guides the students through the grammar lessons in the book, both the grammar lessons on the page and also the grammar lessons that accompany the book that are on film. And there are even videos and films to help with pronunciation, to help make pronunciation not only an auditory activity, but also a visual one. Let me show you what I mean.
Johnny's jacket's black. Jenny's jeans are blue.
Also a very enthusiastic lady. As you need to be, right, when you're modelling and drilling pronunciation. If the students are going to get excited about it, we need to show them some enthusiasm too. Wonderful. So a strong strain of film throughout today to help with all aspects of teaching the language. Now, those of you that got more A's than B's on our psychological test perhaps teach with a little bit more emphasis on grammar. Let's look at some materials that place a little bit more emphasis on grammar. But before we do, we'll pause for a moment to answer a fundamental question. Rather a difficult question, in fact. What is grammar? Maybe you can help me. Grammar is a set of rules, good. Rules that dictate how words are combined in order to convey things like time and aspect, of course. Grammar is a tool which helps identify the most frequently used meanings. For example, when you want to talk about what you did yesterday, 90% of the time you use the past simple tense. If there was no past simple, i.e. if there was no grammar, imagine you had to explain every time, okay, so now I'm going to tell you about yesterday. How many wasted words we would have to convey that meaning. Grammar is a shortcut to conveying meaning and helps us not to waste words. Grammar is a generalization of the behavior of words and groups of words. If you like, it's the flip side to vocabulary. It's a kind of opposite to vocabulary, except it's far more abstract than vocabulary, which is why sometimes our students don't always react favorably to the idea of a grammar lesson. Oh no, grammar is difficult. Oh no, grammar is so boring. Oh my goodness, grammar, no, scary. But it doesn't have to be difficult, boring, or scary if we approach it in the correct way. Who are these lovely people? Do you recognize them? Ah, the Incredibles, a family of superheroes. I've always wanted to have a superpower myself. When I can't sleep at night, this is the kind of thing that goes through my head. What would my superpower be? Violet can become invisible. Oh, can you imagine how much fun you could have if you could become invisible? You could go to the bank and help yourself, and you would never need to go to work again. Wouldn't that be nice? Helen is the mum of the Incredibles, and she can stretch different parts of her body, which has many applications, especially for teachers. You know those two noisy boys at the back that just won't shut up? Fantastic, right? I'm not suggesting you hit your students. This is not the message we want to give out today. Helen can also fly, which would be my choice, I have to say. To soar through the clouds like a bird, wouldn't it be fabulous? Why do coursebook writers put characters such as this in coursebooks, especially in primary coursebooks? Exactly the answer I was looking for, because they're well known. It's something familiar for our students. And what we do is use something familiar as a springboard to something new. In this case, as a springboard to the analysis of, well, grammar, in fact. They present a context. They become the context for grammar. And every context needs to be fleshed out with vocabulary if we're going to use it to teach grammar. And the vocabulary in Look is also presented with a graphic approach. Again, great for visual learners. Lovely superpowers represented in these pictures. As we saw earlier, the grammar is very visual. These guys have obviously been to the bank as well, running away, until the policeman with the apostrophe T comes along, and then they can't run anymore. Nice little sort of visual trick to help display the difference between the positive and the negative can, can't. Even the practice exercises in Look are of a graphic and visual nature. Here is one, for example, not unlike those books. Do you know Where's Wally? This is a little bit like Where's Wally, a big, busy picture. And this picture is used for pair practice, ask and answer. For example, student A, can he fly? Student B, yes, he can. Student A, can he lift a 1-ton weight? No, he can't. Can they speak English? No, they can't. Can he run very fast? Yes. Let's hope so. Otherwise he's lunch. So this visual engaging approach to grammar, I hope you'll agree, means that it makes it easy rather than difficult, engaging rather than boring, and certainly nothing to be afraid of. Great. Truth be told, truth be told, I suppose most of us take a mixed approach to teaching, some grammar and some communication work, of course in different sort of, with different emphases. Discover English also takes a mixed approach, a tried and tested methodology. Yes, there is work on these authentic phrases, this everyday language to help our students sound more fluent. And of course, there's also work on grammar, substitution tables and controlled practice. And if you're familiar with Discover English, you'll know that it's a very bright and beautiful book. New language is presented at the beginning of every unit in a photo story. Gemma and Felix are the characters, and their story continues right through the book. And that new language is practiced at the end of every unit in a cartoon story, which revises the language in an interesting context. Not only are visual learners catered to, but also, of course, auditory. This, for example, is a rap, and the book is full of songs, raps, and rhymes. But here we hit another challenge. Have a look at the instructions for this particular activity. It's an 8-line rap, as you can see. Listen and order the lines in your notebook. Okay. This could be challenging. It might take quite some time. Imagine if the students write the lines out in the wrong order, then listen, number them, and then write them out in the correct order, and then it's time to go home. Right? This may take too long, so we need to change our procedure so that we can still get exactly the same value out of an exercise like this. And I have a couple of suggestions for you of what we could do with this kind of exercise. And the first one is to make it a combination of kinesthetic and visual. It will require a little bit of preparation on your behalf. Somehow you'll need to copy, either write out or photocopy the lines a little bit bigger, cut them up. If you've got time, you can make several sets for different groups. If not, just make one set and do the activity from the front and physically order the lines on the board. And then the copying down becomes much more efficient, doesn't it? That's one approach. And by the way, if you're going to take the time to make materials such as that, I would strongly recommend that you get together with your colleagues who are teaching from the same book. And if you don't do this already, start a series of folders. Unit 1 folder, Unit 2 folder, Unit 3 folder, and anything that you take the time to make, collect in, stick it in the folder, and use it a few weeks later to revise, or the following year. I suppose it's working smart, isn't it? Keeping these reusable materials for everyone to use. If you don't have time that day for photocopying or writing things out, another approach to this would be to make it a TPR activity. So number the lines. These are in the wrong order. You're number 1, you're number 2, you're number 3, and you're number 4. And you can group the students, and when they hear their line of the song or the rap, they stand up or wave their arm in the air or whatever it is that you want to do. If you've done that a few times round, perhaps the students will remember these short lines, and if your students enjoy it, you could ask them to perform in front of the class. Some students do enjoy that. Possibly they'll have remembered enough of these lines to be able to write them in their notebook from memory. And then we've taken another step towards language acquisition. So a slight change in the approach to this activity, adding either a visual element or a kinesthetic element. To meet the non-consumable challenge, we are going to, I think, have to rely a little bit more on reusable materials, on the use of TPR, total physical response, in the classroom. We're going to train our students to rely a little bit more on what they hear in terms of understanding language rather than what they actually write down. And the whiteboard becomes our new best friend, because there are lots of activities that are in the non-consumable books that can be easily put up onto the whiteboard and done as a class before they're copied down into a notebook. This one, for example, separate the words. So you can do that as a group, and then it can be copied down. Let's talk about time, functional language for telling the time. But I think we'll just pause for a moment for a joke. Are you in the mood for a joke? Yeah. Good, that's what I want to hear. This is a dentist joke, a dentist/time joke. Here we go. What's a dentist's favourite time? Oh, 2:30. Sorry about that. One more? After such a response, I think I should. This is a Polish dentist joke. Why do dentists like bigos? Just because. Nice. Actually, that wasn't what I was thinking of. Because it's filling. Yes, thank you. Perhaps we should move on now. Clearly, I'm just a frustrated stand-up comedian. We were talking about telling the time. Is an activity that comes from today. Listen and repeat the times, no problem, in a non-consumable course book. What about the idea of something like writing the times in the correct place around the clock? Presents us with a challenge. One suggestion I have for you here is to put this onto the whiteboard. Draw a clock on the whiteboard. Prepare beforehand, if you can find a few minutes, some cards with the times on. And then this again becomes a kinesthetic activity. The students stick the times in the correct place around the clock. You can add an element of competition by splitting that stack of word cards in 2 or 3 and having teams doing this. Or indeed you can switch round the sensory channels altogether. If you draw a blank circle on the whiteboard, you can call out a time, 2:30, and the students can draw the hands of the time in the correct place. To make this competitive, draw 3 blank circles and have the students in groups racing to do this. Get them to stand one behind the other like soldiers. The person at the front has the pen. You shout a time and the front 3 draw the hands on, points for the fastest, points for the best, and then they pass the pen to the person behind them and they go to the back of the line. Now, why did I bother to explain that part of the procedure to you? Well, because if you do it like that, it means the quiet ones get a go too. It's not just the confident ones that dominate. So making sure that everyone is included. Another alternative for this is with the help of one of these things. In English, it's called a split pin, and you can make a working clock, well, kind of, with a split pin. You need a circular piece of paper or card and 2 strips to represent the hands, and then you put them on top of each other and press the pin through the middle. Some people nodding. You split the pin at the back, and then the hands can be adjusted, and you can do all sorts of things in class with this. I believe, I was counting the other day, and I believe this is my 15th city on this tour. I've been to 15 cities, and in none of those cities has anyone been able to tell me what this thing is called in Polish. Today might be the day. Anybody know what this is in Polish? A kind of, one more time? Ćwiek. Okay. Do we accept that? Ćwiek? Oh, sorry, madam. This is the only answer I've had today, so I'm going to take it. Fantastic. So with a ćwiek, you can make a working clock. Collect that clock in again at the end, put it in the folder for Unit 2, use it again next year. To meet the non-consumable challenge, we're going to have to get our students to work a little bit more often in pairs and in groups. And as we well know, given the correct motivation, young learners are actually very good at working together. Snow day. Do you think the teachers might notice what's happened here? I think possibly they will. So getting them working together more often is another response to non-consumable course books. An exercise like this, for example, we've seen these already, haven't we? Students match the words with the pictures. You can't physically write it in the book anymore, so we need a change of procedure. I would suggest the following. First of all, working in pairs, rather than writing individually, the students talk to each other. They talk through the exercise. Now, a suggestion for you. I think it's of great value if we can spend a little bit of time revising the meta-language that they'll need in English for this kind of activity. Simple things such as, number 1 is, that one is, it's your turn, I don't know, let's ask the teacher. If you can revise those phrases with your students, then there's more chance that they might do some of it in English, which is of value, of course. So talk through the exercises rather than actually writing the gaps in. We'll do that a bit later. And then to practice, the students can work in pairs, and A can point to a picture and B can say what it is. So A points to a picture, B says, oh, play football. They could also mime it, is a very good idea. Yep, make it kinesthetic again. Another idea, which is quite a nice one, if your students have the technology in their pockets, is this. You can get them to take pictures of the pictures in the book, and then the practice activity becomes student A saying, play the guitar, and student B goes and shows the correct picture. Now, obviously you won't do this every lesson, but for a change of pace, something nice to do maybe once a month or something, if the students have the technology. Good. You've been sitting very patiently for quite some time now, so I think it's a good opportunity to re-energize. So we're going to play a game to use in the classroom. Hooray! For this game, you need a partner. Can you just check, is the person next to you still awake? Wake up, it's time to do something. Okay, what I'm going to do is show you some pictures and some words at the same time, and they'll flash up very quickly on the screen. If the picture and the word are the same thing, what I'd like you to do is clap your hands together, clap your own hands together. If the picture and the word are different, what I'd like you to do is high-five your partner. Let's practice. Let's practice. Are you ready? The picture and the word are the same. Reasonably enthusiastic, but nothing to write home about, I would say. Let's go for it. The picture and the word are not the same. Fantastic. Well done. If you're working in a group of 3, be careful you don't slap anyone in the face, please. Now, not only is this a game of great intelligence, but also superhero speed. You'll need to keep your eyes on the screen. The pictures and the words flash up and disappear extremely quickly. Are you ready? Here we go. Here comes the first one in 3, 2, 1. We'll do it again. Now you know how quick it is. 3, 2, 1. Well done. 3, 2, 1. Yes, well done. Let's keep going. 3, 2, 1. Good. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Just a few more. 3, 2, 1. Huh? Oh, we'll have a look in a minute. Two more. 3, 2, 1. And the last one. 3, 2, 1. Very good. Very good. Okay, well done. Super. Now, of course, to do this in the classroom, you will either have to be a PowerPoint wizard, or you can do it the traditional way with flashcards and word cards. Just mix up a few of the word cards so they don't match, and then you can, you do it physically, like you're at the gym. Now, that's not the end of the activity by any means, because the most important part is still to come, and that, of course, is the sum up. When you finish, stick those flashcards and those word cards on the board, and ask the students which ones were correct in green, which ones were wrong, and what are the correct words for those that were wrong. And then, hey presto, you have all the vocabulary with a visual reference on the whiteboard, ready to be copied down into the students' notebooks. Now, the idea for this activity came from here. This is the same language. It's from today, and it's a gap fill activity, which also poses a challenge for us in a non-consumable course book, doesn't it? All it needs is a change of procedure, very similar to the one that we saw earlier on. I would suggest that the students, first of all, talk through it in pairs. Number 1 is, number 2 is. The open class check becomes more important than ever these days. I don't know about you, but what I used to do to check how everyone was doing was go have a quick look. Okay, oh, yep, she's nearly finished. Yep, she's got most of them. Yep, oh, didn't do her homework. Like something like that. We can't actually do that anymore. So the open class check part becomes far more important. So various ways, check with the whole class before moving on. And a practice activity for a gap fill could be something like this. One pair, so students work in pairs. One student reads along until the gap. The other student provides the missing word. And of course, this can be completed at home in notebooks as homework. If your students have access to the activity books or the workbooks, then I would argue that they are of more value than ever now in terms of proceeding in the way that we were used to. So a change of procedure is all that's required there. Here's another exercise that presents us with a challenge in a non-consumable course book. 14 sentences. The idea here is that the students read the sentences. Are they true or false? Horses have big teeth. True, yes, okay. Cows run very fast. No, cows run very slowly. Now, to write out 14 sentences in your notebook and then correct around half of them, well, how long does that take? Rather a long time. Rather a long time. So there's a few shortcuts that we can take in class to make sure we get all the value from this. The first of them, well, it's not magic, it's just splitting in two. So work in pairs. A's, please will you do 1 to 7, and B's, please will you do 8 to 14. Halving the time required. And then when it comes to the open class check, the students swap books and they check their partner's work. And some students respond very well to that, don't they? Haha, you got it wrong. Well, some students like that kind of thing. And then at home, they can finish off the other half that they didn't do in their own time a little bit later. Another approach to this is one of my all-time favorite classroom activities. It requires, for preparation only, that you photocopy the exercise once, possibly a little bit bigger, and you stick it on the wall at the back of the classroom. Okay, so stick it on the wall over there. And then you need to group the students like this. So, yes, you're a writer, and you're the runner. Huh? What do I have to do? Well, when I say go, the runner from each group runs to the back of the classroom, let's say it's over here, runs over, reads the first sentence, horses have big teeth. Horses have big, tries to remember that sentence, run back to the group, write it down. Horses have... I'm going to run back again because I forgot what the... You get the idea, right? It's very funny because the students always forget half of the sentences. And if after 2 minutes you say to the students, right, change, someone else becomes the runner. And by the end of the activity, all of the students have most of the sentences written down in their notebooks. And then we can slow things down and they can make the corrections working as a group, finish the others at home for homework. So running dictation, that activity is called. Stick it on the wall, students run and remember, they go back to their group and dictate those sentences to the other students in their group. A very efficient and fun way to get the language down in the notebooks. Wonderful, okay. Non-consumable course books have changed a few things. They've changed the way that the instructions look in the book. Perhaps we'll need to change some of our procedures in the classroom, but the value of the activities and the language remains the same. Non-consumable course books mean that we can't show exactly where the test or exam preparation materials are, but everything you need is still in there. It's just that the labels are not there. I'm sure you can find it with no problem. Before I say goodbye, just one favor to ask you, and that is if you have time to let us know what you think about the sessions that you've watched at the conference today. In return, we'll give you a longer version of the psychological test that we did earlier to do on yourself, to find out more about your teaching style, and a version that works with students in the classroom, something to use on Monday morning when you're not sure what you're going to do. If you fill in the form on the website, if you click the correct places, we'll send you an email and you'll be able to download these and print them out and use them yourself. So, all that remains is for me to say thank you very much. When you're enthusiastic, it makes my job a pleasure. Thank you very much.